The day I moved into my new house, I had no idea that it would mark the beginning of a nightmare. Nestled in an unfamiliar neighborhood where every face was a stranger's, the air felt heavy with secrets. As I stepped out of my car, dragging boxes behind me, something small and hard hit me square on the shoulder. It bounced off with a thud, landing at my feet, a crumpled packet of Pringles. My heart raced as I looked up, trying to trace its origin. That's when I noticed the faint silhouette of someone peering through the window of the house next door. For a moment, everything froze. Was this some twisted initiation ritual? Or worse, had I unknowingly stepped into hostile territory? The thought sent chills down my spine. Who were these people? What did they want from me? Panic surged through my veins as I scanned the darkening street for answers, but there was nothing. No witnesses, no evidence, just silence broken by the distant hum of cicadas. I tried convincing myself it wasn't personal. Maybe it was just kids playing pranks or a random act of mischief. But deep inside, paranoia clawed at my mind. What if this wasn't random? What if someone here knew more about me than I realized? Every shadow seemed menacing now. Every rustle in the bushes like a whisper plotting against me. This single incident planted a seed of dread that rooted itself firmly in my chest. Little did I know then, this harmless-seeming event would spiral into something far darker. A web of misunderstandings, accusations, and danger lurking around every corner. The nightmare escalated faster than I could comprehend. One moment, I was standing in my dimly lit living room, replaying the absurdity of being accused by my neighbor for something as trivial as Pringles. And the next, I found myself shoved into the back seat of a police car. The world outside blurred through the tinted windows like fragments of a shattered dream. My mind raced with questions. Why me? What had I done to deserve this? But there were no answers. Only cold handcuffs digging into my wrists and an overwhelming sense of dread that tightened around my chest like a vice. They took me to a place where time seemed to stand still. A cell so dark it felt like the walls were closing in on me. A single flickering bulb hung from the ceiling, casting eerie shadows that danced across the concrete floor. The air was damp and frigid, seeping through my clothes and chilling me to the bone. To make matters worse, an incessant hum of ominous music echoed faintly in the background, as if mocking my solitude. It wasn't just silence, it was suffocating isolation, amplified by the relentless tension gripping every corner of the space. No one gave me a chance to explain or defend myself. When I tried to speak, they silenced me with sharp glares and dismissive gestures. "Save it," one officer barked, his voice dripping with disdain. "You'll have plenty of time to talk when we're ready." His words cut deeper than any blade, leaving me paralyzed with fear. Was this how justice worked? Or had I been thrust into some twisted game where innocence didn't matter? Hours passed. Or maybe it was days. I couldn't tell anymore. Then came him. An interrogator whose presence alone was enough to send shivers down my spine. He entered the room with deliberate slowness, dragging a chair across the floor with a deafening screech before sitting directly across from me. His eyes bore into mine, unblinking and merciless. "Let's get one thing straight," he growled, leaning forward until his face was inches from mine. "We know what you did, and trust me, lying won't save you." I opened my mouth to protest, but he cut me off mid-sentence. "Don't waste your breath. Your excuses mean nothing here." Each word hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, to shout that I was innocent, but my voice faltered under the weight of his accusations. Instead, I sat there, trembling, feeling more trapped than ever. Every fiber of my being screamed for freedom, yet the bars surrounding me seemed impenetrable. As the interrogation dragged on, his tactics grew more aggressive. He slammed files onto the table, accusing me of crimes I'd never heard of: fraud, theft, even conspiracy. "You think you're clever?" he sneered, pacing back and forth like a predator circling its prey. "But we've got evidence. Solid proof that ties you to everything." Evidence? What evidence? My mind reeled, searching for answers that weren't there. Had someone framed me? Was this connected to the strange events at my new home? The Pingles, the neighbors, the creeping paranoia? Everything suddenly felt linked, part of a sinister web designed to ensnare me. By the time he left, slamming the door behind him, I was on the verge of breaking down completely. Tears streamed down my face as I leaned against the wall, clutching my knees to my chest. For the first time in my life, I truly believed I might never escape this nightmare. The darkness of the cell wasn't just physical, it was suffocating, consuming every ounce of hope I had left. As I sat there, curled up against the cold, damp wall, my mind became a battleground between despair and fleeting memories of happiness. It was cruel, really, how the mind clings to moments of joy when you're drowning in misery. Images flashed before me like fragments of a shattered mirror. Laughter shared with friends under the golden hues of a summer sunset. Quiet evenings spent reading by the fireplace. Even the simple pleasure of sipping coffee on lazy mornings. Each memory felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart because it reminded me of everything I might never experience again. I tried to shake them off, to focus on survival instead of self-pity, but they kept coming back, unrelenting. The worst part wasn't the memories themselves, it was the realization that I might be trapped here forever, condemned for crimes I didn't commit. My thoughts spiraled into chaos as fear took hold. What if no one believed me? What if this nightmare stretched endlessly, day after day, year after year? I could feel the weight of eternity pressing down on me, crushing my spirit until I wasn't sure who I was anymore. Was I still the person who laughed under summer skies, or had I become someone else entirely? A shadow confined within these four walls. Then came the music. Faint at first, almost imperceptible, but growing louder with each passing second. A mournful melody filled the air, wrapping itself around me like a shroud. It wasn't just background noise. It was alive, pulsing with sorrow so profound it seemed to echo my own pain. Every note pierced through me, amplifying the turmoil inside. The song seemed to whisper truths I couldn't bear to face. That freedom might truly be out of reach. That innocence meant nothing in a world bent on destruction. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably, hot against my chilled skin, as the melody dragged me further into an abyss of despair. In those moments, I questioned everything. Had I done something, anything, to deserve this? Was this some cosmic punishment for sins I hadn't realized I'd committed? Or was I simply a pawn in someone else's twisted game? The thought terrified me more than anything else. If this was all orchestrated, if someone had framed me deliberately, then what chance did I have of proving my innocence? The evidence pointed against me. The accusations weighed heavily, and the people who should have been helping me only saw guilt in my eyes. But beneath the despair, anger began to simmer. How dare they lock me away without giving me a fair chance? How dare they strip me of my dignity, my future, my very identity? I clenched my fists tightly, nails digging into my palms as rage overtook vulnerability. For the first time since being thrown into this hellhole, I allowed myself to feel something other than fear. This anger, it burned bright, igniting a spark of determination deep within me. No matter how bleak things looked, I refused to give up. I couldn't let them win. Not now. Not ever. As the music reached its crescendo, fading slowly into silence, I made a silent vow. If I survived this ordeal, I would fight back. Not just for myself, but for anyone else caught in such injustice. Until then, I had to endure, survive, breathe. Because somewhere beyond these bars, beyond the lies and accusations, there was still truth waiting to be uncovered. And I swore I'd find it, even if it killed me. The woman moved with calculated precision, her every step a masterstroke of manipulation. She was Luke's wife, on paper at least. But behind closed doors, she had already discarded any semblance of loyalty or affection. Her plan was simple yet diabolical. Divorce him, claim his fortune, and leave him shattered in her wake. But to pull it off, she needed allies, or rather pawns. And who better than the unsuspecting neighbor next door? At first glance, she appeared fragile, almost pitiable. When she knocked on their door late one evening, tears streaming down her face, no one could have guessed the cold calculation beneath her facade. "Please," she whispered, clutching her arms as if trying to shield herself from some unseen terror. "I don't know what to do. He's controlling me, suffocating me." The neighbors, moved by her apparent distress, offered their support without hesitation. They believed they were helping a victim escape an abusive marriage. In reality, they were being woven into her web of deceit. She played them like instruments, feeding them just enough lies to keep them compliant while secretly orchestrating events to frame Luke for crimes he hadn't committed. Every conversation, every interaction served a purpose: to paint him as the villain and herself as the innocent damsel in need of rescue. Yet, despite her meticulous planning, cracks began to form. One of the neighbors, a sharp-eyed man named Tom, started noticing inconsistencies in her story. Why did she always seem so calm when discussing her supposed turmoil? Why did she insist on recording certain conversations but refuse to share the recordings? Suspicion gnawed at him, and he decided to investigate further. Tom began gathering evidence quietly, documenting everything: texts, voice memos, even snippets of overheard arguments. But for every move he made, she countered with another. It was as though she anticipated his every action, staying 2 steps ahead at all times. Frustration mounted as he realized how cunning she truly was. Still, he persisted, driven by a growing sense of justice, and perhaps a touch of personal betrayal after realizing he'd been used. The tension reached its peak during a heated confrontation in her living room. Tom confronted her, accusing her outright of exploiting everyone around her. "You think you're untouchable, don't you?" he spat, his voice trembling with anger. "But I know what you're doing. You can't fool everyone forever." Her response was chillingly composed. With a smirk that sent shivers down his spine, she leaned back in her chair and crossed her legs casually. "Oh dear," she purred, her tone dripping with condescension. "Even if you suspect me, you'll never prove anything. Face it, you're powerless against me." For a moment, silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the faint hum of music playing somewhere in the background. Then, with deliberate slowness, she stood up, her gaze piercing through him like ice. "And remember this," she added, her voice razor sharp. "Luke will lose everything, and there's nothing you, or anyone else, can do to stop it." The night was eerily quiet until the shrill ring of a phone shattered the stillness. "Hello, 911? A woman broke into my house," The voice on the other end sounded frantic, almost desperate. Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed against the darkened windows as police cars screeched to a halt outside. I watched from behind the curtains, my heart pounding in confusion. What was happening? Who had broken in? When the officers arrived, they immediately turned their attention to the accuser, a woman standing confidently in the middle of her living room. She pointed an accusing finger at me, her expression smug, almost amused. "It's her," she declared, her tone dripping with certainty. She broke in without permission. Her calm demeanor was unnerving. It didn't match the hysteria one would expect from someone claiming to be a victim. Instead, she smirked, crossing her arms as if daring anyone to challenge her version of events. I tried to explain myself, but my words fell flat against the wall of skepticism surrounding me. "I didn't do anything wrong," I insisted, my voice trembling with desperation. "This is all a misunderstanding." But no one believed me. Not when the accuser stared them down with such unwavering confidence. To make matters worse, she laughed, a cold, mocking laugh that sent chills down my spine. "You really think anyone will believe you?" she taunted, her eyes gleaming with triumph. It was as though she reveled in my helplessness, savoring every second of my humiliation. Before long, I found myself handcuffed and shoved into the back seat of a patrol car. My protests went unheard, drowned out by the relentless accusations hurled at me. Meanwhile, the true culprit stood silently in the background, watching the chaos unfold with detached amusement. She played her role perfectly, manipulating everyone around her like pieces on a chessboard. And just like that, I became the scapegoat for her twisted game. But fate has a way of intervening when least expected. As we prepared to leave, a man rushed toward the scene, his face pale with urgency. "Wait!" he shouted, waving frantically. "You've got the wrong person." This was Tom, the neighbor who had been investigating her schemes. He claimed to have evidence proving my innocence, pulling out his phone to show recorded conversations implicating her. For a moment, hope flickered within me. Could this finally expose her lies? Her reaction was immediate and chilling. With startling speed, she stepped forward, snatching the phone from his hands before anyone could react. "Oh, poor Tom," she cooed, her voice laced with venom. "Did you really think this would work?" Then, turning to the officers, she added smoothly, "He's clearly under duress. Look how shaken he is. I wouldn't trust anything he says." Tom froze, fear flashing across his face as she leaned closer, whispering something only he could hear. Whatever it was, it silenced him instantly. His shoulders slumped in defeat and he backed away, defeated. Once again, she had managed to twist the narrative in her favor, leaving me trapped in her web of deceit. As the car door slammed shut, sealing my fate for now, I caught one last glimpse of her triumphant smile. In that moment, I realized the full extent of her cruelty. She wasn't just framing me. She was enjoying every second of it. Just as hope seemed to slip through my fingers like grains of sand, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. I had spent countless nights pacing the cold, sterile confines of my cell, replaying every moment that led me here. The accusations, the lies, the betrayal, it all felt suffocating, an endless loop of despair. But then, just when I thought there was no way out, a miracle unfolded. Tom, the neighbor who had once been silenced by her threats, reemerged with fire in his eyes and determination etched into every line of his face. He burst into the precinct where I was being held, clutching a USB drive like it was the Holy Grail. "I found it!" he shouted, his voice trembling but resolute. On that tiny device was irrefutable proof, a video recording from a hidden security camera outside her house. It showed her orchestrating everything, planting evidence, manipulating witnesses, even laughing cruelly after framing me. But uncovering the truth wasn't without its challenges. As Tom raced to deliver the evidence, she discovered what he was up to. In a frenzied panic, she tried to destroy it, smashing devices and erasing files. Her hands shook violently as she hurled laptops across the room, their screens shattering against the walls. Yet, for all her cunning and ruthlessness, she underestimated one thing: time. By the time she realized the backup copy existed, it was already too late. The authorities had secured the footage, sealing her fate. When they brought us face to face at last, the air crackled with tension. She stood there, defiant as ever, her arms crossed over her chest like armor shielding her from accountability. "You think this changes anything?" She sneered, attempting to mask her fear with bravado. But beneath her composed exterior, cracks were beginning to show. Her voice wavered slightly, betraying the storm brewing inside her. "You're done," I said firmly, stepping closer until our gazes locked. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a flicker of power, a sense that justice might finally prevail. "Admit it. You framed me. You used everyone around you like pawns in your twisted game." For a split second, silence hung heavy between us. Then, with a bitter laugh, she threw back her head and admitted everything. "Fine," she spat, her tone venomous. "Yes, I did it. And you know what? I'd do it again if I could. Luke deserved to lose everything. And so do you." Her words hit hard, but they couldn't shake the resolve building within me. She could twist the truth all she wanted, but now the world would see her for who she truly was. As officers led her away, handcuffs clicking tightly around her wrists, I allowed myself a small smile. Justice may have taken longer than expected, but it arrived nonetheless. And those scars would remain, both visible and invisible. I knew one thing for certain: I was free. The climactic moment arrived under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp, where shadows danced like specters in the night. She stood there, calm, calculating, and utterly unyielding, the mastermind behind every twist and turn that had brought me to this point. Her eyes gleamed with malice as she circled me, each step deliberate, each word dripping with venom. "You've come so far," she mocked, her voice smooth but laced with contempt. "But do you really think you can win?" I was cornered, trapped between her cunning and the weight of everything I'd endured. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear, but from the sheer determination to end this once and for all. The air crackled with tension, heavy with the unspoken knowledge that this was it. The final confrontation. "You're done," I spat back, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Your lies have unraveled, your schemes are exposed, and now you're out of moves." Her laughter cut through the silence like shards of glass, sharp and biting. "Oh, darling," she purred, leaning closer until her breath brushed against my ear. "You underestimate me. I always have one more trick up my sleeve." For a fleeting moment, doubt crept into my mind. What if she was right? What if she had another plan, another way to twist the truth and escape justice? But then I remembered everything. The pain, the betrayal, the countless nights spent fighting for freedom, and realized I couldn't let her win. Not now. Not ever. Summoning every ounce of courage, I stepped forward, meeting her gaze head on. "No more games," I declared, my voice rising with authority. "I'm breaking free. From your lies, your manipulation, your cruelty, you've run out of roads to take. It's over." Her composure faltered for the first time, cracks forming beneath her polished exterior. She lunged at me, desperation flashing across her face, but I sidestepped her effortlessly, turning her momentum against her. With one swift motion, I revealed the recording device hidden in my pocket, the final piece of evidence proving her guilt beyond any shadow of a doubt. Defeated, she collapsed to her knees, her mask of invincibility shattered. As authorities closed in around her, I delivered my parting words loud and unwavering. You're out of options. Stop. This ends here. Some people leave scars, others leave lessons. Burn and reborn stories that break you, then rebuild you.